Hey guys, welcome back to another DIY video. Today I'm going to be crafting my stash, trying to work through all of the items that I have on hand. I have some leftovers from other projects and just some things I picked up, but most of my items are from the Dollar Tree or Dollar General, but you can use this as inspiration and just use whatever you have on hand. And of course, don't forget that you can change up the style, the colors, the patterns to fit your decor. So I tend to lean more towards like rustic farmhouse type of thing, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to distress items, or you can change the color palette to fit your style. So without anything further, let's get into these fun and easy DIYs. For this first one, I have this chalkboard sign that I picked up at Dollar Tree a while back, and I am going to use the front of it, but if you don't want to do anything to like cover stuff up, you can go ahead and use the back, but this way the back is already finished. I did take some sandpaper over this just to flatten out the letters a little bit because the paint that was used on it was raised, and so I just sanded it down a little bit, cut off the cord at the top, and we're going to give this a few coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color Silver Lining, just making sure that it is fully dry in between coats. If you are not going to hang this up, you could fill in those holes using some like filler. I can never remember what it is called, the one I use from Dollar Tree, but it's like a putty type of thing. But I'm going to hang this up, so I'm left those holes. So we're going to just give this a couple of coats, and of course do whatever color you want. Now I have the coverage that I want and everything is fully dry, and I'm just taking my sanding block and really just going along the edges to kind of bring that black back out, just to distress it. You could also go in with some paint and distress it that way, but I just did this one because it's, you know, easy enough to do it this way. Once you're done sanding, really anytime you sand, make sure that you wipe the surface off to get all of the dust off nice and clean. And then I have these wall stickers. This one I picked up from Dollar General, I believe, for only $1. They have a large selection usually, but Dollar Tree also has some. And I am just laying these stickers out. It's in a 3-piece set, and I'm just using my ruler to try to make sure it's centered either way on the sides. And I struggled with it a little bit, and it's like, you know what, it's easier to actually just use a piece of paper and hold my fingers down. So I just did that to make sure, and I was pretty right on. So I'm going to go ahead and take the others, and I just lined them on top of each other, and once I had the first one done, that made it pretty easy. Once I have all of the stickers down, very carefully, I'm using this little scraper tool. You could use like a old credit card or a gift card or whatever, and I don't want to scrape the paint, but I want to push out all of the air underneath the sticker so that it just looks better. It just kind of looks like it flows better in there, like it's kind of painted on instead of looking like a sticker. So now I'm Mod Podging, and I'm using this really crummy paintbrush. This one is from the Dollar Tree. I've used others from the Dollar Tree that were great, but this one was not, and it was shedding like crazy. And I kept just trying to pick off the hairs, and then finally I was like, this is not going to work. So I grab a paper towel, and I'm trying to like just wipe off the Mod Podge, and I'm going to start over. And in the process of trying to get one of the hairs off, I scraped off some paint. So I spared you guys all. I just kind of patched up with paint and then Mod Podged the whole thing. And then I wanted to make a bigger twine bow, so I just reached for something, and I had this pack of sandpaper, and that's just what I ended up using. Wrapped it around a bunch of times, tied it off in the middle, and then using a lighter, I'm just going to burn off all of the little fuzzies on this. Sorry, I realized the camera angle wasn't great. And I didn't actually burn myself, but I think I scared myself and I dropped it. But just be careful with it. But this does work really well to get all of those fuzzies off. I also really like the look that it gives the twine because it darkens it up in some areas. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I decided that I wanted a thicker center. The outsides were kind of curling up, and just because the twine was curly. So I'm taking another piece of twine and I'm wrapping it around the middle, which was kind of a challenge because it kept getting caught in the little strands, but I just wrapped it around so I had the thickness I wanted, and I liked how this kind of finished off this bow. Now we're just going to embellish. I have some greenery here. I picked up a bag of this at Hobby Lobby. It was an old, or it was a garland piece that had broken apart, and so they just sold like the bag of it, and I've just been picking off of that for some projects. I also attached the twine, you can see, back to the top of my sign, and I'm just gluing down this greenery. It's a little bit too wispy for me, so I'm putting little tiny dabs of hot glue on some of the ends to kind of hold it in place. I wanted it to look wispy, but I needed it to be a little bit more controlled. And then once I had all of the greenery attached the way I liked it, I attached the twine bow to the center. And I did make sure I held that on for for a little bit until I made sure the glue was kind of set, because this was a thicker bow. And here's how it is all finished. I don't have it hanging up, I just have it leaning, but I love how this came out. I think it's really cute, really pretty, and I can't wait to hang this up on a wall. Just got to find the right spot. Probably, I'm thinking a guest room, but we'll see. Now for this next one, I have this sign. This was from the Dollar Tree last year. I'd already started picking off the front paper. It was a garden sign, I think. And then I have this little sign that says, or paper that says Farmhouse. It was part of a calendar. I used the rest of the page from the calendar for another DIY in a live video I did recently. I did a Craft With Me live. Anyways, I had that leftover piece, and I happened to have this sign in my stash that was like the perfect size for it, like seriously perfect. So I sanded off whatever paper I couldn't really peel off, or at least sanded it off so it was like a rougher finish. And now I'm just giving it a coat of paint so that you can't see the back of the calendar page through it. And I'm just using silver lining because I already had it out for my other project. And now I am, once that's dry, we're going to use a glue stick, and I'm going to use that to all over the board to apply or to attach the farmhouse paper, the calendar page. I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying what I'm doing, but you can see it. And now to seal this in, I am just taking some Mod Podge, and I'm trying to go pretty light on it so I don't add to any wrinkles here, but I'm just putting a light coat of Mod Podge to help keep that paper down. And then I'm going to just sand off the edges. Now there wasn't a lot of paper hanging over. Like I said, this was pretty exact to the size of the board, but there was just a little bit, so I'm just using my sanding block and sanding away from the board, or the sign, sanding down so as to not pull the paper back up. And this one did have a little bit of, like, you can kind of see indents on the edges, just to kind of, which I liked, just kind of looks like a cut piece of wood or something. So we're just going to clean that up. You could also just trim it with a sharp tool if you have it. And then I realized that I put the paper on the wrong way so that the sign would be hanging upside down. So I just pulled out the staples, and I am reattaching with some hot glue the right direction. I don't know if I'm going to be hanging this or leaning this up, but like leaning this on something, but I wanted the option. And then I decided that I needed a little bit more detail. So I have these little stickers from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just moving 4 of them to the bottom so that I don't get paint on the rest of them. And I'm just going to paint, this is a paint, I think it's called Chocolate Bar. I'm just trying to use up what like any paints that I have that are like almost gone. I'm trying to just use them up so I can get rid of them. So this was a good color brown. It worked. I painted this and just let that dry. And then I wanted to go in with this khaki is what it's called by Apple Barrel, and a dry stencil brush. And I'm just kind of going over that. I wanted it to look like, I don't know, I guess like nails, or I don't know, hardware, old hardware or something. I don't know. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but now they're dry, and I'm peeling them off, and a bunch of the paint from like the plastic came off around these little button stickers, so I was just kind of peeling off the excess around the edge of the sticker. And they are stickers, but I'm using some hot glue, just a tiny bit, to put those in place, and I'm going to put 1 in each corner. And that's it for this DIY. I love how this came out. It's very simple, but it's very cute, and I think it might be fun to add into a wreath or tuck into a shelf with other decor. I'm not sure exactly yet, but I like how it came out. For this next one, I've got this beaded garland I was so excited to find at the Dollar Tree. This, to me, was still worth $1.25. So I did pick this one up fairly recently, but we're gonna make our own beaded garland with these beads. So I have seen this technique before, but never done it. We're gonna take all of our beads off of the twine, and I was debating on keeping that little bunny. I don't really use bunnies, but I decided to not keep it because the ear was broken anyway. So, okay, what are we doing here? So I'm gonna divide these up. I was gonna count them and divide them up, and then I was like, oh, they're different colors. I wanted to do 3 different colors anyway. So I divided them all up and put them in plastic Ziploc baggies. I was counting these beads. I realized there wasn't the exact same number of each one, but I just went with it because I'm using 3 colors just like they did, so I knew I could make it work. The color choices I'm using is a Waverly chalk paint in celery and moss, as well as white. I use the celery and moss a lot in my everyday decor. I also really love it for spring. So we are going to do that, and I'm just taking a little bit of paint and pouring it in the bag, and then just kind of smushing it around and getting the beads covered in paint. It's my first time trying it this way, and
I don't know, I thought it worked pretty good. And then I've seen a few people do it this way. So once the beads are covered in paint, you're just going to pour them into a box, like you'd use it to like wrap clothes or whatever, a shirt box. I had some of these that I bought for Christmas for like the pretty patterns. So this is just the bottom of it. And you're going to roll the beads around to get like to smooth them out so it's not like goopy paint. So I ended up doing a couple coats of this on each bead, but it's going to depend on the color of the beads and the color you're painting them, and letting it dry in between. And you could use a hair dryer or a heat gun to dry it in between, but there you have it. So we're going to move forward. Did that to all of the beads, and then some of them had a little bit of paint gather in the hole, and of course I went out of camera shot here, but I used an end of a wooden skewer, or you could use a toothpick, and just kind of pushed it through and cleaned that out so that I could string these beads. And then I decided to put a little bit of Mod Podge because I'm always afraid like the paint's going to chip off the wood beads, especially because of how like wood beads are just usually draped on other items. So I did the same technique, put them all in a bag, Mod Podge, rolled them around in the box, and let them dry. If you just let them dry in the box and don't use like a heat gun or dryer, make sure that you roll them around every like few minutes until they dry. They won't take long to dry, but otherwise they'll just get stuck to the box, and you don't want that to happen. I mean, I don't think you do. And now we're just going to string this up on some twine. I put a little bit of hot glue on the end of the twine to give me a little bit of a point, and we're just going to thread them through in the pattern of your choice. I'm just kind of doing, you know, in order, so to speak. And before I finish putting together my garland, I wanted to show you this little tag I made. So I actually forgot to show you, this is a metal tag from the Dollar Tree. I think it comes in like a 3-pack, and these stickers are also from the Dollar Tree. So I painted the tag white a couple coats, and then I have these stickers that I'm adding on, and then I'm going to put some Mod Podge on it just to seal it in and also keep the paint from chipping off of the metal tag. And I did go ahead and paint the back white and Mod Podge that as well, just so that if it got flipped, it would all look the same, but I didn't, you know, waste the time sharing that with you. So I'm going to reuse the tassel from the original one. I did use my lighter to burn that up a little bit, and I wasn't really sure how to do this, so I'm going to try to describe how I'm doing it. Maybe someone else has a better tutorial on that, but I am threading the tassel through one of the beads. You could also make your own tassel. There's lots of videos to show you how to do that, but this one worked fine for me. And I just put a tiny dab of glue between those two strings and then trimmed that one off to kind of hold them in there, and then fed the rest of the beads on top of it. And I was like, I think that's going to work. And then I'm taking the other end of the string and attaching that to the tassel, tying it onto that too so that it's also, you know, attached there, and putting a tiny dab of glue in the knot so that it doesn't come undone. And then on the other end, we're just going to string on our tag and tie it. I tied it, you know, as close to the bottom of the beads as possible so that the beads are moving around. And once again, I did like a double knot, and I was going to try to string this string back up through a bead too, but it wasn't working. So I just put a tiny bit of glue once again in the second knot, and then tied the knot over that hot glue and trimmed off my string. So I hope that all makes sense. Like I said, maybe you'll find some better tutorials online, but I thought this worked pretty good. Here I am pulling that knot back open and just putting a little dab of glue in there. And that ended up working perfectly. Here it is all finished. I love how this came out, and I'm really excited to have a beaded garland like in the colors that I decorate with.
Well, that is going to do it for today's video. Yeah, I see the light from the blinds on the wall behind me. Anyways, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up because that really helps me out. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing before you leave. And I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.